Hey everyone, Dr. L here, and I am making your virtual lecture for week 6 on media and technology. So let's go ahead and get started. Today I'll be doing some housekeeping, I'll do a little review, I'll do a lecture on media and technology, and then I'll end with exit paths and reminders. So uh, just as a reminder, you got chapter 8 quiz, you got discussion 5 on critical thinking, and then I did do a grade update. So check eLearn to make sure that you have a grade for all the assignments you've completed. If not, let me know. And I believe I've given individual feedback to everyone about at least one written assignment so far. So if you don't have feedback on your writing from me yet, email me. Sometimes it's an issue of just students not being able to access or knowing how to find that feedback. Sometimes there's a release button I have to click to make sure it's visible to students. So just make sure you're following up on that. If you have anything you want to share with your classmates, you can always let me know, and I can send out an email to everyone. For example, if you know about events happening in the Dayton community or on campus, that's if they're relevant to sociology in our class, I try to share that with everyone. And if it's really relevant to what we're doing, then I will potentially offer extra credit for those students who can attend that event, like I did for the peace studies event on Hiroshima recently. All right, so let me know about that stuff. One thing we're thinking about from last week is norms. And so, one thing that I want you to be thinking about as we continue scaffolding and sort of building off of previous weeks is thinking about how norms evolve over time, thinking about how norms might be different in different parts of the country or in different countries entirely. And sometimes we even see norms evolving in real time. So, for example, when I was in college in the early 2000s, it was not fashionable, and you get made fun of if you wore leggings as pants. But nowadays, most people, at least women, a lot of people wear leggings as pants, and it's socially acceptable. And so, sort of a funny anecdote about that is I had a friend when I was in grad school in Honolulu, and she was teaching sociology classes at jails and prisons in the area. And some of the women that she was teaching through I forget if it was the jail or the prison, I guess it would have been prison. They were able to leave for the first time in years. Some of them had not left a jail or prison facility in over a decade because they were on a work furlough program. And so they were on a public transportation, they're on the bus, and they were very struck by the fact that there were all these women on this bus who were wearing leggings as pants and sports bras as shirts. And they came back and they're telling Miss Colleen, my friend Miss Colleen, all about their experiences being out for the first time in a long time. And that was the first question they asked. Is this normal? Is it normal that women wear workout clothes and leggings out in public like that? And it was something that was so subtle, and it happened incrementally over time, that the majority of us are just used to it, and we don't necessarily think about it on a daily life or in our daily lives. But when someone is cut off from society, we don't, and then they get re-exposed to society for the first time in 5-10 years, they notice things that maybe we wouldn't necessarily notice. And part of what they're noticing is the evolution and change in norms around how women can dress in public. All right, so moving on to new material, media and technology. Media is all print, digital, and electronic means of communication. Media consolidation is a process by which fewer and fewer owners control the majority of media outlets. And if we're thinking about what that means, critical of that, it's important to think about who owns the media that you're consuming, who owns CNN or who owns Fox News and that sort of thing. Media globalization is the worldwide integration of media through the cross-cultural exchange of ideas. We've already talked a little bit about globalization in other ways. For example, we've talked about cultural diffusion and how that increases through globalization. So this is a similar idea, but it's specific to the media. And then the evolutionary model of technological change is this idea that there is a breakthrough in one form of technology that leads to a number of variations from which a prototype emerges, followed by a period of slight adjustments to the technology, interrupted by a breakthrough. So just thinking about how technology sort of progresses and continues and we build upon it and what that means for how our social world sort of operates on a day-to-day basis. And then, of course, being good sociologists, we want to be critical of changes to technology. And so, if we do that, we can start to think about gatekeeping, which is the sorting process by which thousands of possible messages are shaped into a mass media appropriate form and reduced to a manageable amount. So, we potentially could have access to every single thing under the sun because of the internet and technological advancements. But due to gatekeeping, actually, we're very limited in what we are exposed to. And so, of course, we can sort of use some of the foundational sociological theories from Weber, Marx, and Durkheim to analyze what that means as far as structure and agency and that sort of thing. And then similarly, knowledge gap is the gap in information that builds as groups grow up without access to technology. And so, folks in poor areas and rural areas often won't have access to Wi-Fi. I saw a lot of that in West Virginia, for example. It's very mountainous and rural in some areas. And so there were children growing up who didn't have access to reliable Wi-Fi and computers and stuff like that. And yet when they would go to school, they would be expected to use the internet and be able to use the tablets that the DOE was providing for them. And they didn't know how to because they weren't using that technology at home due to accessibility issues. So there's a gap in their knowledge compared to their peers at other schools or other parts of the country where there is, lots of access to Wi-Fi and computers and technology and that sort of thing. Okay, technology is the application of science to solve problems in daily life. Technological diffusion is the spread of technology across borders. Again, thinking about that globalization process. And the net neutrality is the principle that all internet data should be treated equally by internet service providers, so sort of not prioritizing one over the other. And we can start to think about that from like an econ perspective and that sort of thing. And then finally, one of my favorite sociological thinkers, especially if you think about more contemporary theories, is Michel Foucault. And so this is the first chapter where you're really exposed to his work. So the panoptic surveillance, the definition in our textbook is it's a form of constant monitoring in which the observation posts, the place where the observation is happening, are decentralized and the observed is never communicating with directly or doesn't necessarily know when they're being observed. And so Michel Foucault's work has a lot to do with the panopticon, and we're going to learn more about his work in just a second. Actually, just to sort of speed things up, I'm not going to play this video for you in my video, but this is about a 3-minute YouTube video that summarizes Michel Foucault's contribution to the idea of the panopticon. His work, he was a French philosopher, and his work is often translated from French to English, so it can be kind of dense to read. I usually don't have students read his work. Instead, I showed this summary because I think it's really useful and will help you to better understand the panopticon and what you're reading about in our textbook. So it's sort of supplementing this chapter. As far as thinking about his work, be thinking about how to define the term panoptic surveillance in your own words, keeping in mind Foucault's work and that 3-minute video that I'm sharing with you. With the panopticon in mind, how similar and different is a prison or a social institution in comparison to the factory, the hospital, the asylum, and the school? So again, thinking about social institutions, how they organize and influence our lives, and are they really as different as we like to think they are? Also thinking about what surveillance technology means as far as like CCTV footage and this idea that when you basically go out in public, you leave your home, you should be operating under the assumption that you could be surveyed at any point in time. So just be thinking about what that means as far as how we operate in public and how we operate within society and the role of technology and what that plays in all of this. Here's your exit pass. I'll be sure to send it out at the beginning of the week, maybe again at the end of the week. And then in terms of due dates and stuff like that, I just realized this is the wrong set of reminders. This is for my in-person class, but I will fix this before I upload the PowerPoints to our eLearn page. But just be thankful. My in-person students have a paper due. You don't, so yay! Be thankful for that. But the one thing that is the same for everyone is that if you want to do test corrections, make sure you're emailing me to get the detailed instructions on what to do for that. And if you have any questions about whether or not you're eligible to complete test corrections, review the syllabus, and the information about that is there. And then once you've done that, you can email me and I'll tell you what to do for that. As far as what's due this coming, upcoming attractions of what's due, you should be completing Chapter 8 quiz, and you should be doing Discussion 5 on critical thinking. So don't forget to do those things by Sunday at 11:59 p.m. And other than that, that's all I got for you. I will make another video next week. Have a great week.